Hello, and welcome to Book Reviews Kill, a podcast about fantasy, sci-fi, and horror novels. I'm Evan.
And I'm Chad.
And you're joining us today for our recap and discussion of Gardens of the Moon, Volume 1 of the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. Today we will be discussing books 1 and 2 of Gardens of the Moon, those being Pale and Darujhistan, respectively. Oh my god, we have so much ahead of us here, Chad.
What a lovely journey awaits.
We're embarking on such a trek here. Everybody right now that's listening with us, we're so happy to have you here. This is going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much work on the part of me and Chad, but not only just for me and Chad, but it's going to be a lot of work for you, the listener, to be patient with me and Chad as hosts. Chad, for everybody that's wondering, Chad has read, I think 7 books.
I think 7. Yeah, that's Toll the Hounds, right?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
We will be Malazan experts by the end of this. But
7 is Reaper's Gale. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you got to Reaper's Gale?
Yep.
Is that the one? Okay.
That's the one, yeah.
Only, for anybody that's listening, that's curious, my history with Malazan has been kind of strange because I read Gardens of the Moon years and years ago, and I was like, whoa, whatever the hell that was, and I just like didn't I didn't really know what was going on. And then I started Dead House Gates, and it was just on a completely different continent. And I was like, I don't know I give up. I can't do this anymore. Like, I tried the first book. I don't know what's going on still, 700 pages later.
There was a time and a place, and it wasn't then.
And then I got a different job, and it was this person I was working with named Joe. I don't know if Joe's listening to this, but this person, Joe, that I was working with, told me, Evan, you need to push through Malazan Book of the Fallen. You have to read all of them. They're so good. They're some of the best fantasy books I've ever read. And I said, okay, I'll reread Gardens of the Moon. I will keep going. So I reread Gardens of the Moon, and then I finished Dead House Gates. And I was like, that was freaking awesome. And then I started Memories of Ice in early 2021, and I got about 200 pages into Memories of Ice, and then started making content on Book Talk and Instagram and stuff around that same time. And when I started making all that content, I was like, oh no, like I can't keep reading Malazan because I need to start reading even more stuff. I need to get in and see what everybody else is reading, and because I want to make varied and diverse content. I can't just like make a bunch of Malazan content. I could have probably, but right. I wouldn't have gotten as many followers.
Trying to be a little more relevant.
Yeah, I would have been a little bit too niche for just starting out on there, I think. But anyway, I had to put Malazan down for a little bit. Even though I was very much enjoying myself, I was already a little bit into Memories of Ice, but I said, okay, I need to put this away for a little bit, but now we can do this. I don't know why now is the perfect time, but it just felt right. It feels right to both me and Chad. Chad has read more of this, and I think, Chad, you probably know a lot more than I do about kind of just like how things work, you know? So I might be deferring to you a little bit, but I think that also by the 7th book, you still aren't quite sure exactly what's going on either. So.
No, these, I thank you for the history there. I love kind of setting everybody up for like, this is our experience with it in the past. And mine, if you've listened to multiple episodes of this podcast, you've heard me maybe not complain, but mention that my memory is not like my most best trait. So I don't remember it like scene by scene for any reason. I do remember when I was reading them, it was probably 5-6 years ago, that at least, that I was very excited for my secondary read through. Because I was like, I know these books are good enough that I'm going to read them twice over the course of my life at least. But the first time through can be a little rough if you're just reading it alone with no friends, as I was doing. And I remember I started in January, and I got up to the 7th one, Reaper's Gale. And at that point, it was like the summer was ending, and I was just like, man, I'm really tired of reading this series. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was just like, noticed that I hadn't really been reading that much. In fact, it was probably the least amount that I was reading over the course of the last like 2 decades. And so I was just like, I need something fresh. I think I probably traded out for like a Dritz book and started reading that or something. And then I just never went back to them, because when you read Malazan, you can't like take a break for a few months and then pick it up again. You need to just like power all the way through, because it's so complicated and so little of it is actually explained to you. Steven Erikson does not baby you or hold your hand throughout the course of this series. It is very much just you're like it's like a river, and you're just dropped into it, just blunk, and then you're going. There's no preface as to like, oh, here's the spring, here's where it dumps into the ocean. No, you just go and are along for the ride. So if you're reading it with us and you're thinking, man, there's a lot that I don't understand, it's not a you thing, it's a book thing. So
Totally.
know that.
And I think, we've had some people in the Discord that are very excited because they've read the first couple hundred pages, which is where we're stopping the episode today, about page 237 or something like that. And they said,
Exactly.
hey, this isn't exactly as confusing as I thought it was going to be. And that's really awesome. People that are extremely confused right now, that's what this episode is for. Chad and I are going to do a recap of those first two books, including the prologue, of course. And then we're going to discuss, and I do want to put a little bit of a disclaimer out here for anybody that's listening to this first episode of this probably 40 episode long journey that Chad and I are about to go on. Chad and I are going to get a lot of things wrong. Like we're going, this is just the nature of this series. We're going to guess a lot of things. We're going to probably, what we say and what we think is going to happen and how we're interpreting things could be objectively wrong to people that have finished the series. So just please be patient with us, and just please know that like Chad and I are doing our very best to try and keep everything as contained and as accurate as we possibly can. We will obviously make sure that the recaps are, that's not a matter of opinion or anything. That's just explaining what happens. So we can do that. Right. We can do that justice for sure. But I just wanted to throw that out there because these books are just they're so ambitious, and there's just so many moving parts to them. Even on my third read of Gardens of the Moon, I got a lot more of it this time. Obviously, I've read the book twice, but I don't have the 10 books to put. I still don't know what the houses are. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I know what the Warrens are, but
oh my gosh!
I know. I just mentioned something that you totally forgot.
Dude, I didn't even think of it. Oh my gosh, you're right.
And you were like, sorry, I was giggling over here.
No, and this is going to happen many times. Please be gentle with me because I've read these before and I will know so little,
But it just really goes to show that there's just so much in these books. And so everybody, we just want to thank you in advance for your patience with us. And we want to just congratulate you on choosing to take this ride. You might get off of it at some point, and we totally understand. But Chad and I are muscling our way all the way through this, and we're going to start right now with the recap for the first book, the first two books of the first volume.
And we are so stoked to have you along with us because that was the missing element when I first read these books was you, Evan, to talk with, and then you all listeners to kind of keep me motivated and to talk to in the Discord. And it's just we're going to get so much more out of it because I really think this is the only series that I can say that is similar to this and how I feel like it's seminal to the fantasy category, maybe Lord of the Rings, but would be the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I think it's like a cornerstone must read if you're really trying to be a well-rounded fantasy reader, So if you are debating whether or not to join us, you should. All right, let's do the recap.
I'm going to read it. Here we go. Oh boy.
Here we go.
Oh my goodness. The series opens in the 96th year of the Malazan Empire, during the final year of Emperor Kellanved's reign. A 12-year-old Ganoas Perran witnesses the sacking of the Mouse Quarter of Malaz City, where Surly, commander of the Malazan Empire's intelligence faction known as the Claw, is executing unregistered sorcerers after witches have begun to riot opposing the Empire's harsh sanctions. Perrin also witnesses a confrontation between Surly, now calling herself Lessine, or Throne Master, and Whiskey Jack, at that time commander of the Malazan Third Army, where their mutual dislike is confirmed. Perrin expresses a desire to be a soldier when he grows older, much to Whiskey Jack's disapproval. 7 years pass, and Lessine now rules as the Malazan Empress. 2 new ascendants have appeared in the Pantheon, Amanas, or Shadow Throne, and Cotillion, or the Rope, who have seized control of the House of Shadow and are now plotting Lessine's death. Cotillion possesses a young fisher girl, assuming the name of Sari, living in the Itkokan province of the Kwantali continent. Sari is compelled by Cotillion to join the Malazan Second Army under High Fist Dujek One-Arm, which is fighting on the Genabakis continent as part of a long-range scheme to get her close to the Empress. Amanus unleashes his Hounds of Shadow to wipe out a nearby Malazan cavalry regiment to draw attention away from the sorcery used in the area. Adjunct Lorne, personal aide to the Empress, is not fooled and recruits Ganoes Perrin, now a lieutenant, to help her track down the missing fisher girl. 2 years later, the Malazan Second Army under High Fist Dujek is besieging the city of Pale, one of only 2 free cities left on Genabakis. Pale is holding out thanks to an alliance with the powerful Anomander Rake, lord of a floating fortress called Moonspawn. Rake is commander of the non-human Tist Andi race and his own allies, Prince Kaz Devor of the Crimson Guard, and the powerful warlord Kaladin Brood and his troops. Devor, Brood, and their troops have been drawn off to the north by renewed efforts of the Malazan Fifth Army to capture Black Dog Forest, leaving Rake vulnerable to attack. The decision is made to attack Moonspawn. During the battle, several of the Empire's high mages are seemingly killed by friendly fire. Only Taishren, a high mage, and Tattersail, commander of the Second's mage cadre, survive. Moonspawn is driven off in the battle, wreathed in the smoke of its defeat. Pale falls, and the Malazan's mysterious allies, the Moranth, sack the city in an hour of brutality. Unbeknownst to Taishren, the Bridgeburners, an elite sapping unit of whom the demoted Sergeant Whiskeyjack is commander, manage to save the soul of a dying mage, Hairlock, and transfer it to a new puppet vessel. Tattersail then agrees to help them expose Taishren's treachery. Meanwhile, Ganoes Perrin travels by ship to Genabakis. Topper, the Clawmaster, visits Perrin via Warren, delivering orders for him to take command of the Bridgeburners. Arriving at Genabaris, Perrin travels by Quarrel with the Green Morath to Pale. Dujek intends to send the Bridgeburners to Darujhistan, the last surviving free city, to lay the groundwork for the Malazan attack. The newly promoted Captain Ganoes Perrin arrives to take command of the Bridgeburners, but he is almost immediately assassinated by Sari. Opan, god of luck, intervenes and arranges for Perrin to survive. The Bridgeburners leave for Darujhistan without him. Tattersail helps Perrin return to health. Whilst recuperating, Perrin foils an attack on the sorceress by a Hound of Shadow. Now in Darujhistan, Krepa has one of his dreams, in which he tells his audience of beggars that the coin will fall that night. Crocus Younghand robs the Diarl estate at about the same time as one of the members of Darujhistan's Assassin's Guild, Talo Krafar, is ambushed by an unknown foe. As Crocus makes his getaway, Talo, who mistakes the thief for his assistant, takes a shot at him. At that very moment, Crocus hears a coin fall and bends to pick it up, which saves his life. He is then pursued by those who attacked and killed Talo, escaping again and again through sheer luck. His pursuers come to the conclusion that an ascendant is meddling. Circlebreaker, a spy for the Eel, observes a meeting between Turban Orr and Councilman Feder. The Great Raven Crone visits the alchemist Baruch on behalf of Anomander Rake to arrange a meeting between them. Whilst there, Baruch allows her to observe as Councilman Orr calls on him. Orr wants Baruch to support his intention to issue a proclamation of neutrality. The alchemist declines, and Orr tells him that even without his support, the motion will be passed, as he has secured a majority in favor. To avenge a friend, Rallic Nam lies in wait to kill Lady Simtal, but at the last minute, influenced by Opan, Nam kills her lover, the councilman Lim, instead. This inadvertently scuppers Orr's plans, as he no longer has a majority. In the meantime, more members of the Assassin's Guild come under fire from unknown assailants, and Anomander Rake visits Baruch and agrees to an alliance with him and his fellow Cabal members. Man, there is so much about this that seems so conventional, right? I mean, you know, we've got the politics, we've got thieves, we've got assassins, we've got sieges, there's mages, but then the thing with Malazan seems to be that there's so much in here also that's absolutely bonkers. Like the Moranth, they like these bug people, but they're like, no one's ever seen them. They don't know if they're actually humans or not. Like for me, they're just bug people that ride big bugs.
They
like
ride
big
dragonflies.
Like they ride dragonflies, and they're like, there's like a color system for them and everything, and they have like this weird language where it's just mostly like hisses and clicks, and it's like, because we're in media res here, and because nothing's really being explained to us, it just seems so like tossed in and like so matter of fact. You know, it's just like, oh, the Moranth bug people are here riding on their dragonflies, you know, whatever.
Sure.
I guess it's time to get on our dragonflies so we can fly over to Darujhistan. It's so cool. You know what I mean? Like, we're seeing this world through people that very much live here. Like, I don't know if you could ever really get used to a giant dragon. Like that scene where Whiskey Jack, I think it's Whiskey Jack, is like, they're about to leave on the Moranth, on the Coral, and it like looks at him. They like make eye contact. He like makes eye contact with this bug thing, and it's like, it's such a weird little part to include there. But okay, so that was just one thing I wanted to get out of the way here real quick. What I really want to talk about though is what I think is the pinnacle of, honestly, there's a part towards the end that's really amazing, but like the Siege of Pale it's so iconic that it's like on the cover of the collected Malazan Books of the Fallen ebook. The scene where, you know, Anomander Rake comes out, he stands out on like this platform. You can
little ledge,
barely see him, right? But like he's like this black figure, like against all this
cloaks
like white
snapping
like,
in the
marble.
wind.
And then like just seeing it from Tattersail's perspective, and Tattersail just like watching like these waves of like chaos magic like just descend and like just taking souls down here, man. Like just the amount.
First she feels the aura of his magic power, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And then we don't find this out.
Master. Yeah.
And she's a master already. Yeah, she's leader of the mage cadre for I forget which.
The second army.
The second army, thank you. We learn later that there's great ravens, right? And these things are like 15-foot wingspan. They feed off of magic. So they need to have like a lot of magic around them in order to survive. And thousands of these things bloom out. Like the first hit that Taste Grail, am I saying that right?
Tattersail.
The leader.
Oh,
Taste thank you. He attacks Moonspawn, and then that kind of like causes all of the great ravens to fly off of it, and there's thousands of them. So the fact that there's thousands of ravens able to be supported off of the magic of Anomander Rake or whoever else is in Moonspawn is incredible, you know, and pretty.
Well, there's like pieces that are falling off of it into Pale,
into the city because it's over
God.
it. Yeah,
I know what's so amazing about that
entire
scene
cliffs. It says
it's not happening in real. I mean, it's a memory of Tattersail's, right? Because the chapter starts with her kind of like seeing the aftermath of that battle, and then the next section of it is her remembering it, and really. The siege that battle that is not very long. It's like a few pages. You know, It's not like this long drawn out chapter or anything. And I think that it was really clever of Erickson to just kind of do it in like this kind of flash of memory for Tattersail. Like her lover is disintegrated, and right before he's disintegrated, I think Khaled is his name. Right before he's disintegrated, he kind of like looks off and is like his eyes widen, and like the attack that killed him and cut Hairlock in half and killed the other high mages,
her entire squad,
right? And then just a shitload of other people, obviously.
Right.
Like I think it's like we forget sometimes that there are just thousands of soldiers also like, right there too. But Taishren, I wanted to ask you about that because I think that was even on my third read. I was just like, what exactly is going on here? Is Taishren like very loyal to Lysine?
We don't know really at this point.
Okay.
Taskrin, we know that he has some sort of mixed loyalties because he's certainly not always attacking the bad guys, as it was very much. Well, Tattersail is fairly certain that, and Hairlock was like screaming to her as he was cut in half. Well, I guess he wasn't screaming. He actually remained remarkably calm throughout the entire thing.
I think he knew
for a man who's
because he knew Quick Ben and Kalam were on their way over.
Totally. Yeah, he's like, I made a backdoor, man. I always have a backdoor plan. And his backdoor plan is crazy, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, he was like, where did the like blue fire that incinerated us come from? Like, did it come from Anomander Rake? And so he was like, it was very much implied that Taskran was the one who attacked them.
I want to talk about Hairlock a little bit here because that is just wacky. For anybody that was reading and was like, is that really what happened? Yes, actually, you didn't read that incorrectly. His soul was transferred to a puppet, like a marionette style puppet, who has full bodily autonomy apparently, and can walk around, and is just, that's a person in a marionette's body now.
I just always think he looks like a gingerbread man. In my head, he's just a gingerbread man.
In my mind, he looks like Pinocchio from Shrek. Like that's how
better. Mine is like the gingerbread man from Shrek, also like, not my gum, but drop the buttons, you know? Also, I'm really glad that you showed me this cover photo because Moonspawn, in my mind, probably because the word moon is in it, has always looked like a miniature moon. And it's
Oh,
always
I've
been really
seen
hard.
depictions of it like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's always
No,
been
you're
really hard
not.
for
Yeah.
me to like reckon the fact that he comes out on a ledge and it's like, well, is he like, how does the gravity work? You know, because it's like round, it's like a ball if it's the moon. And so is he standing like perpendicular to the ground, being attracted from the gravity of Moonspawn? No, I don't think so is the answer. So I like this image.
So the way that I pictured it when I first read it was I pictured Moonspawn as like kind of like an upside down mountain with the city on top on the level part of it, like an inverted pyramid almost.
Yeah, I'm
with the
going to
city
change
on
to that.
top.
That's good.
But I've also seen depictions of it being like a crescent moon shape almost, with most of the city inside of the crescent, like at the base of the crescent on the inside. You know what I mean? So I've seen that kind of depiction as well.
Oh, wow. If you type in Moonspawn Malazan and then go to images on Google, there's a lot of really cool ones. Wow.
By the way, though, folks, just look up pictures to at your own discretion because I've already had one thing spoiled for me. So just it's very tempting because you want to get an image of what things look like. So just be careful. Try to find spoiler-free Reddit threads or something or whatever, but just be careful. Also, the cool thing about finding spoilers, though, is that there's so much crazy shit going on in this series, you'll probably forget what that even means anyway. So it's unless it's like a huge character death. But anyway, the reason I wanted to talk about Hairlock a little bit is because I wanted to get this right. Did they task him with navigating the Chaos Warrens? Is that like what his whole thing is? Is like they needed him to maybe not the Chaos Warrens, but he needs. Oh, and okay, sorry everybody. We knew this was going to be a mess, but like the Warrens. Let's go through that real quick, just so that everybody can, and then we can talk about Hairlock.
Which my first read through, I didn't even kind of understand those until the third book. I think it was until someone like is like talking. There's like a conversation there. I was like, oh, that helps so much. You know,
there are quite a few different kinds of magic in Malazan. And the magic is sourced into this realm, I guess you could call it, this plane of existence, I guess you could call it.
Good.
That magic, that type of magic, depending on what you're trained in, is sourced from a Warren, which is a sort of magical outer dimensional channel.
Altered dimension,
that you can in fact navigate physically.
Right, you can literally go there.
Yeah, but that's where the magic like comes from. And you can like open warrens, like portals to the warrens and stuff. When Perrin and Topper are traveling to, where do they go? Unta?
They go back to the city, the Malazan Imperial City. What is the city of Malaz? I'm pretty sure.
I thought they went to
Malaz
Unta.
City.
For some reason,
where is Unta? Because they start.
Unta's
at
in
place.
Kwantali. Oh wait, no. Unta is the current capital, not Malaz City.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, so they did take a warrant to Unta, and that was where Perrin's family is. So you're right,
though.
The
map of Malaz right now.
Yeah, I looked it up. So for our listeners, so the prologue takes place on a little island where Malaz City is, and it's right next to Kwantali, which is a landmass to the west. And then the part with Sari and like the dogs, and where we first see Perrin and the adjunct Lorne and everything. And all that jazz. That's all happening on Kwantali in Itko Khan, which is kind of like a coastal area of Kwantali. And then Perrin and Topper, one of the claws, goes to Unta through an Imperial Warren, and they talked with Lessine for a little bit, and Lessine's just like, oh, I remember you, the young little whippersnapper, like whatever. And then Perrin goes and talks to his family for a tiny little bit, which is extremely relevant, don't worry. And then the rest of the book takes place on Genebakis, which is a completely different continent. And then Deadhouse Gates all takes place in Seven Cities, which is a completely different continent.
Yeah, this story, you know, like you even mentioned when we first started this podcast, was that, you know, you started book 2 and you're like, and it was on a totally different continent. And I was like, what the hell? That is something that everybody, including myself, needs to just like accept and get used to right now. Is this story is all over the place. And I think it's like book 6 or something. I don't know. There's a book in our future that like the first at least half is totally about a whole new set of characters. Even though we spent like last 6 books or something with the old ones, it's just like so. This story has a definite theme and trend of just like going all over the place, but they all will connect at one point. I assure you, though it is sometimes frustrating.
I want to keep talking about Pale before we move to the Darujhistan stuff, because the first Darujhistan chapter is like, in my opinion, it's like not that interesting. It's just me. Like I know that the characters are important, but I want to stick with Pale for just a little bit longer because I want to talk about what happens with Perrin when he gets stabbed and then goes to weird, dusty desert purgatory where there's like an arch of like writhing bodies and stuff. And then
Totally.
oh my god, man, that part is so crazy. What's up with that? Like, can you explain a little bit? Because I think that's probably one of the more confusing parts of like Perrin getting stabbed. Was that Sorry that stabbed him, or was it Cotillion?
I think it was Sorry, and I think Sorry
Compelled
is
by Cotillion.
compelled by Cotillion, because the prologue of this book is like fisherman's daughter who's kind of like trying to get some nets back to her dad is like watching this army go by, and she's kind of on this cliff face, like sitting next to this old hag, and this old hag who's like a magical woman of the fisher village throws out some weird prophecies or something right before she gets taken down or like slapped with a gauntleted hand which kills her. And then Cotillion and someone else, I forget who.
Amanus, I think.
Amanus, yeah. They arrive out of nowhere. They claim the other side of the street, and they kind of make a joke out of it. And it's like the other side being their own like realm, which is probably a different Warren they're referring to. And they take her for some reason. They're like, she'll work, that's fine. And then they proceed to slaughter the village and a lot of the soldiers and stuff. And Sorry, I'm quite certain, is that fisherwoman who is now kind of the hand or representative of the vessel, thank you, of Cotillion in this mortal realm here. Why he needed her, I'm not sure, but she gets placed into the Bridgeburners.
I think they're trying to get to Lysine. They're trying to kill her. They're trying to use Sorry to kill Lysine. And that's why, to my understanding, it took like a decent amount of magic in order to occupy Sorry like that. And so they covered up for it by they wanted it to distract from the use of all that magic in Ikko Khan with like all these dogs that come in and murder like 400 people or whatever. So it's like this big massacre, right?
Totally.
But
like disgusting.
But Adjunct Lorne, I didn't mention it in the recap here, but she seems to be like, what does she call? She's like the opposite of magic. Like she's not, which is kind of confusing language.
Like, she like sniffs out magic users,
but she's not. I liked how it was though, because it's like it's not that she isn't magic or something like that. It was like she was the antithesis of magic. It's like
yes,
it's not that. That was such a cool way of phrasing that, because it's like it's not just that. Like you'd have to almost be somewhat magical. I feel like almost to be able to do that. But anyway, Perrin is sent by Lorne, who is like just not having it. She sees the magic on the wall here. She knows what's going on. And so she sends Perrin after this fisher girl. But I don't think that Lorne knows that the fisher girl, Sorry, is going after Lysine. I think it's just sketchy that she would join up like that. And so she's having Perrin go follow her. But Cotillion knows that Perrin is there to stop Sorry. So that's why he has Sorry kill Perrin. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay, that's
totally,
all correct.
Totally.
Okay, cool,
I think that I'm pretty sure, as far as I know. Yeah, and then there's like, I mean, there's like a 2-year period of time here that Perrin is at his family's manor, and then I think he's just kind of, it's implied that he's trying to find out about this fisherwoman's daughter by asking other towns that are similar and just kind of figure out who she is.
So then Perrin gets stabbed, he dies, and then he goes to cool, like, you know, Nevada desert, but gray
Death
filtered.
Warren.
Yeah, like somebody shows up as I think Hood shows up as like a bunch of different versions of himself too.
Yeah,
that whole scene is so fucking weird, dude. Like,
it's really weird.
But so Opon, I think that's how I'm going to pronounce it. Is actually
I think it's Open.
Okay, so but Opon. There's actually 2 gods, or I don't even know if they're gods. They're ascendants. Are gods and ascendants the same thing? Oh my god!
I have a question in here to ask you whether or not they're the same thing or not.
Okay, I gotta pause real quick. Everybody listening, Chad and I are doing our very best here. This is how confusing it is. So.
Yeah, it's been more than I think it's been at least a decade since I've read them. Since how old was I? I think it was like 23. I'm 34 now, so yeah, it's been like 10, 11 years.
We sometimes get people to listen to these episodes just because they like listening to our podcast, and they don't have any desire to really read the books. So I feel like our listenership is split up into like 80% people that have read this part of the book or read this book, and they're laughing along with us, and they know exactly how convoluted this is. And then 20% of people are like, "Wow, Evan and Chad really lost their edge here." Like they sound like
not even read these books. Like, wow, dude. For someone that's like, both of us are on our second read through. We're like, wait, is this like critical thing the same as this other critical thing?
Oh
like,
my gosh,
I have no freaking clue is the answer to that. But I think that the Ascendants and like Cotillion and stuff, I think the right way to think about them would be like a demigod.
Like there are gods, but I don't think we've seen really like a real god yet.
Yeah, like I think they're like capital G gods, and I think that Cotillion's like a lowercase G god.
Okay, that makes sense. Because so what happens with Perrin, like so Opon is these two ascendants, a man and a woman. I think they're siblings. And I was just kind of hazy as to like why they bring Perrin back.
Well, I think what's going on here is they need the opposite of sorry. I think they're on the opposing team of Cotillion and whoever else was with him. They're like, okay, well, if you're going to have like a representative for you in the mortal realm, then I'm going to have one too. And Perrin is supposed to be leader of that tribe or of the Malazans, and that god, I'm sure, knows that Sorry's in there. And so he's like, I want a representative that can kind of maybe control her that's also there. And so he's like, do you want to work for me? And this, the perks is you get to continue living.
Yeah, what an interesting world we have here where it seems like the lowercase g gods, at least, or these ascendants, if that's what we're going to do, that's how we're going to label them. They seem to be able to die, for one thing. They can die. And also the populace, or at least the major moving parts and POVs that we're seeing in this series, seem to be very aware of their existence and their meddling nature. You know what I mean? It's not like this superstitious thing where it's like, oh, the gods, like, oh, maybe they're there, maybe they're not. It's like, no, those pesky fucking ascendants are gonna like get all like it's already bad enough that we've got this empire that's trying to take over the entire world, and it's like there's this bloody war going on, and just awful stuff is going on all the time. Not only that, but gods are real, and they have a stake in all of this as well.
That's very fun stuff. So just to shine a little light onto Opon, they are ascendants. They're called the Twin Jesters of Chance. And so one thing that might help everyone to understand is, and a reoccurring theme and literal item, I guess, within this world is the Deck of Dragons. A lot of seers uses this deck to like predict the future. It's kind of like a Wiccan deck or whatever.
Tarot cards.
Yeah, tarot cards. Thank you. It's kind of similar there, except each one of these cards represents an ascendant. Within this deck of cards, there are, I think the word they used is aligned and unaligned. So most of the gods, ascendants, whatever we want to call them, are aligned with certain forces, with certain factions. And the Opon, the Twin Jesters of Chance, is an unaligned card. So kind of a chaotic, neutral element agent of chaos.
That kind of explains things.
Yeah, like they conduct things for their own entertainment. If they see that one of the factions of gods is getting a little bit too powerful, they might deliver a coin to a young thief and make it so he has just crazy good luck.
So what was up with the Hound coming in and trying to kill... Was it trying to kill Hairlock? Or was it trying to kill Tattersail? Or was it trying to kill Perrin? Is his name Gear? Is that the Hound's
I think so,
name?
yeah. I think, yeah.
Cool there's name for a dog, man. If I ever get another dog, I'm going to name him Gear.
That's a great name.
And I hope I want to get a corgi and name him Gear after the.
Yeah.
But anyway, what is that Hound doing there?
I think the Hound is trying to kill Perrin.
Okay, so it's a Uno reverse card on Opon.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, because it's trying to prevent the the Hounds are servants of one of the gods, and it's one of the ones that are, I believe, in like the realm of Shadow, which is one of the houses or well, I don't know if it's a house, but it's one of like the factions of the gods, where I said unaligned and aligned earlier. The realm of Shadow is one of those factions. So it's really dangerous for lots of times to travel in these warrens, especially if you're not aligned with the group who owns that warren. But they can be very handy because you can cross an entire ocean in a couple hours, if you travel through it. And so Gear follows Hairlock through. Why? I don't know. Probably because Cotillion was like, go check out who's in my realm. And then kills like a bunch of guards while in the town, then comes across Tattersail, and I think Tattersail is...
Oh, Tattersail was guarding Perrin. because okay, now I remember because like the other Bridgeburners were like, oh, this guy got stabbed, like what the hell? And then Tattersail
Totally.
was like, I'll watch over. Okay, now I remember. Okay, cool. So the gear was coming after Perrin. Tattersail was just there. Perrin. Okay, good.
Cool. So Gear was coming after Perrin?
I think so. Yeah, Tattersail was just
Okay.
guarding Perrin. Gear was coming to finish the job.
You're right.
That's what I'm looking at it as. I could be wrong. So the Bridgeburners, Fiddler, Callum, Quickben, none of them seem to like Sorry very much. They're all really sketched out by her, except for Whiskey
Quickben
Jack.
describes her as pure evil.
Yeah. Whiskey Jack is not hearing it, not having it. Which I mean, there's definitely like a nice little paragraph where it's just like Whiskey Jack like just couldn't handle it if that was the truth or whatever. I can't remember.
Right. He's a big softy inside.
He's a big softy. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about like this many of the Bridgeburners having like this much of an issue with this new recruit, but they're just, I mean, they're very loyal to Whiskey Jack and they're not, you know what I mean? Like I feel like Quickben or Callum could have probably at least attempted to get rid of her.
Right.
At some point,
well, I mean, here's the thing, right? It's like either they're right and they end up doing like good for the world and kill like an agent of a probably not very morally good god, lower G, but or they kill a little girl, right? Like, so like that's like they got to be really certain.
She's like so obviously like not a regular 15-year-old
yeah,
girl.
But just because someone's not a regular Marine doesn't mean you want to kill her. You know, she's like, I think it's probably.
And they don't know that she's like, they just think something's up with her. They don't know like it's cotillion. You know what I mean? Like they're not.
Right.
Yeah, they're not like, we know exactly what's going on and it's really bad. They're like, nah, something's up with this chick. I don't know what the hell is going on. You know, okay. I just wanted to pick your brain about that a little bit because I think it just shows really well the position of command and authority that Whiskey Jack holds over everybody, and everybody's very cool with it.
So the Bridgeburners, you want to talk a little bit about like their history?
Rather you did, because I mean, I know a little bit about them, but I think you could probably do a better job.
So there was the Empire, you know, we're in like the 6th or 7th year of Lassine's rule. And the Emperor before, who Lassine 7 or 8 years ago, like directly after the prologue of this book, she took over. It was like a coup or something. So she took over the Empire. So now she's the Empress. The first thing that she did upon gaining power was this purge, they called it, which is basically, which has happened in our history many times. Someone takes over a ruling body and they kill all of the allies of the old lord, so there's no one there to undermine them. And that's pretty much what Lassine did when she took control of the empire of Malazan, was just kill all of those loyal.
And seems to kind of still be doing it.
Still, yeah. And one of those last few holdouts that she has not fully eradicated is the Bridgeburners, which is a squad of soldiers that were very loyal to the old emperor, but also like storied. Like they're very legendary because they've been like every big battle that is like told stories of and stuff in this world, the Bridgeburners are like central to them. And so, you know, the time that we meet Whiskey Jack and his surrounding cohorts, they have gone through hundreds of battles, have been the heroes of many, many battles. So she can kill them, but she has to do it in a way that she doesn't get caught really, because it'll,
right.
And all the soldiers, you know, herald Whiskey Jack. They're all given these names. You know, if you're given like a nickname, you probably did something heroic, you know? And so she has to go through and kill them all, which is why they're all in the tunnels underneath the city of Pale trying to dig through. They're given the task of that. And then the morning before they take over the city, something happens that collapses those tunnels and kills
most of them.
Yeah, I think there's like 15 left or something.
Oh my gosh,
like, very, very few.
There were like hundreds of them, yeah.
Yeah, and when we meet the Bridgeburners, it's important to understand that these poor people have been underground for the last 2 years trying to tunnel under the city of Pale. And then they get collapsed on these things. People say that it was Animander Rake, but probably was Tastegrin. And then they come out all covered in dust. And of course, then we get taken away with the story.
Not to mention, Dujek has been given orders to send the Bridgeburners to Darujhistan, which... Not trying to spoil anything really, but just it's mentioned that Darujhistan is sitting on top of a bunch of natural gas deposits.
I don't know if natural gas is the word I would use.
Darujhistan is another dangerous place to send the Bridgeburners. They're very wary of this. They're like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are we being sent to Darujhistan on like this weird special mission? So yeah, that's important to go over too. Also, is that also I was given the impression that they seem to want to put Dujek One Arm on the throne to usurp Lessene.
Who's they?
The Bridgeburners.
The Bridgeburners.
Yeah,
okay,
the Bridgeburners seem to, and it's even like there's even like this tiny little exchange, and Dujek like shuts it down like immediately.
Yeah,
because they're just like, I don't know, man. When you're in charge, and he's just like, shut the fuck up, man.
Nope,
like,
nope.
Like,
and Dujek is like the leader of that
High Fist. He's like
the High Fist,
which is interesting.
The general.
Because, see, that's the thing with like these kinds of politics, and this is the kind of politics that I enjoy reading about, honestly, because there is a lot at stake here, and also like Lessene, kind of to your point before, like Lessene can't just like take literally everybody out like North Korea style, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Or, you know what I mean? Like this.
She still needs the support of her army.
Yeah, like this isn't the kind, like she's engaged in an active campaign right now. And like Dujek One Arm is like a legendary fist, you know what I mean? Like or at least I think he's a newly appointed fist, but he's a legendary commander. So just taking him out, taking Whiskey Jack out, it would leave the rest of the army very demoralized.
Right. It'd be like Franklin Delano Roosevelt taking a patent.
Yeah, so I think that's most of the information we need from Pale. I think I've got a pretty good handle on it. There's still some stuff that's just kind of hazy for me. Still, even after our conversation, I'm not quite sure if Gear was sent to kill Perrin. It sounds like he probably was, but I'm not really sure exactly what that's all about. I'm not really sure about Perrin's sword. I don't really understand the significance of his sword, or where he got it exactly, or what Opan did to it exactly. Hopefully that's just more stuff that we can start working out towards the end of this book, because I think that my memory will start getting jogged a little bit more once I read some more stuff, some more Perrin chapters, some more Whiskey Jack chapters and stuff. We need to move on to Darujhistan. That's a lot of stuff from Pale that we got to talk about. I don't want to talk too much more about Darujhistan because I didn't love this book. It was it was pretty confusing. Let me just explain like what I think I understood, and then you can fill in the gaps if you can. So it seems to me that Animator Rake has just suffered quite a loss here. And
you think it was a loss? Yeah.
Huh?
I was... Never mind.
Oh,
you can finish your thought. I'll ask the question later.
Everything is just like, well, was it though? Really?
I know.
Okay.
I know.
But anyway, so Animator Rake is appealing to this alchemist, Baruch. But while this is... before that happens, Baruch is spoken to by Or, who is... some sort of ruling council who's saying, okay, so we're the last city. So Darujhistan is the last free city on Ganabakis. They just took down Pale. They're coming for us now. We are going to let them in, basically. Like we're going to basically just show our bellies, and yeah, we can't. And then Baruch is kind of
them to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Baruch is kind of like, I don't know. And then the other guy is like, well, we're good to vote on it. So,
and I've got the people.
But then somebody that was on this ruling council, I guess, was assassinated. Even though the assassin was trying to kill this noblewoman, I suppose you could call her, Lady Simtal. Mm-hmm. He was trying to kill her, but then Opan seemed to intervene. Opan just has their fingers in all kinds of different pies. That's a thing. So that offset the vote, so that now it's all up in the air again. I think what I'm having trouble with here is just like Crocus and Marillion and Krepa, and what the hell is up with all these? I mean, I know that Crocus like finds a coin, which was a really cool scene when he like finds the coin, and just as he ducks down to grab it, like an arrow goes over his head and stuff like that, and he's just barely squeaking by. I liked all that stuff. He notices that there's like these kind of like shady people doing shady stuff on the rooftops.
Right.
And he bends down to grab a coin just as an arrow like flies over him.
Right.
But then doesn't he like... Okay, so that's really... I don't understand the significance of like what's really going on with these people in the... I understand how it kind of develops later, but if you can kind of just like fill me in a little bit more on what's going on in this chapter specifically.
I don't remember exactly everything that happens in that chapter, but I will say that like kind of my understanding of part 2 of this book is to...
Book 2.
Book two, thank you. Book two. I'm trying to say part two because it makes more sense to me personally, but like I get it. I should use what it says in the like outline of the beginning because it is book one, book two. So in book two, I think is an introduction to the city of Darujhistan and the way that it works and the kind of players that are pivotal in this story within it, in which there are 5. There is the assassins, the alchemists, and the thieves, the council that rules the city, and then the crew, which is like Kruppa and Crocus, and I think Murillo and maybe Ralik Nam. And so those are kind of the players here. And then it also, I think, is really trying to nail down the theme of there are ascendants, and behind every one of the like mortals' actions is a ascendant who's trying to push them and coerce them to do their bidding, basically. And that's why we see Sari gets taken. We see Perrin kind of get aligned. We see Crocus now has the coin of Opon. So we kind of get drilled into our heads. There's a big theme here of that the gods, small g, are factioning out and then trying to defeat each other by using mortals as their puppets. And then, yes, there was a god that was opposed to Darujhistan, the Darujhistanians just getting up and kind of leaving and allowing the Malaz army to just walk in and take over everything. And that god made it so. Was that Opon, I think, who made it so? But what was the god, do we know, that made it so the arrow hit?
I believe that's Opon. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so I think Opon, who was unaligned, is kind of like picking sides here. Or maybe just trying to be an agent of chaos because it seems that's what they do just for their own entertainment sort of thing. But whatever reason, they don't want the other god, their opposed faction, to give up the city of Darujhistan. And I think it's kind of funny with, what is the councilman's name? Or?
Oh, yeah, Turban Or, yeah.
Yeah, it's made very clear that he is just basically a pawn. Like, the councilmen don't really have any real power. I think the Alchemist Guild and Baruch, specifically the head of them, is kind of one of the real power players in the city.
Yeah, he mentions that the sorcerers and like the magic peoples of Darujhistan are very kind of like uncooperative, and Baruch has like a lot of influence over them. And I think that Or and most of the councilmen, they seem to think that like the reason that Pale fell was because of its sorcerers. You know what I mean? Like like Pale, like the Empire came in and cleaned out all of Pale's sorcerers, and now they're coming to clean out Darujhistan's sorcerers. But it's like, no, they're coming to it's conquest. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to be able to negotiate your way out of this. You're the last surviving free city right in the way of this Imperial train that's choo-chooing its way over to you. It's not the sorcerers.
Totally. And if we look at Lysine's history as to what she does when she takes over a new area, is she pogroms the current leader class, right? So I think Or probably would be not acting in his own best interest to give up the city, as he would probably be marked down, being a councilman, as one of the ones to be purged, right? So she can establish a new ruling council. So he thinks maybe for whatever reason that it would be best to give up the city, but I think it probably wouldn't be best, seeing with Lysine's history. She would probably take out all of the current rulers or anyone with any influence within the city.
So let's talk about the conversation between Animander Rake and Baruch.
Right.
That's a pretty interesting conversation. I remember I said earlier that it was like Animander Rake has just suffered a defeat. I mean, I feel like, did he just bounce? Like, did he just leave? Like,
yeah. So in the middle of this onslaught being led by Taskrin and Tattersail's part of this, and they just kind of started moving away. And I don't know if that was a retreat,
because there's like other people living on this. I mean, it's more than just, it's more than, there's like, this is like Animander Rake's like people, you know,
right.
Like,
the Tisti Andy.
I think it's just pronounced Tist Andy.
Oh, really?
I don't think it doesn't matter, man. Like, everything's
Tisty Andy.
You can pronounce anything the way you want to, man.
I'm going Tisty. I don't know this for sure, but I'm kind of guessing, thinking that they're kind of like this world's elves, almost. Like, they're like original. They're an old race of people.
Sure, yeah.
And Animander Rake is their leader.
So this is where we find out that Taishran really was responsible for the deaths of. So this, I mean, I don't know about you, but this made me very kind of like sympathetic to Animander Rake. Is that kind of like the point of all of this? Because like maybe
I
I'm
have
misreading.
always loved Animander. I read 7 books and I never stopped loving Animander.
Because I felt like that was. I mean, also we're learning more about the lay of the land here. We're learning more about Pale's wizards. We're learning more about Darujhistan and the wizards here and stuff, and like how Rake and Baruch and everybody feel about this. It's very important to know about all this stuff to an extent. I mean, just as much as it's important to keep all this other stuff rattling around your head. But I feel like it was more to kind of like show Animander Rake's kind of like side of this battle and what he wants and stuff.
Totally, yeah, but I don't really have clear understanding of exactly all that Animander Rakes wants. Do you? And if so, help me out.
Not from that conversation. I can't.
Yeah, because he's definitely the leader of the Tisti Andi. Obviously, he doesn't want his people to be destroyed. Moonspawn is like his castle. Did you get the impression that the Moonspawn is the only land, quote unquote, I'm using big air quotes there, that
Maybe.
the Tisti Andi own? They don't have like any other sort of country or anything?
Sure. I don't know
neither do I.
Yeah. What's up with Krull the Elder God?
Now we're talking large G God.
I guess if it's an elder god, then I would imagine that it's a bigger god than one of the ascendants.
Totally.
Maybe.
And I think they kind of are the leaders of the different like factions. I don't know if houses is the right word, because houses definitely are a thing in these books, and I don't understand them fully because they haven't been brought up in the first part of this book. But yeah, they're like the leaders of different factions of these ascendants.
That conversation was pure Greek to me, man. I had no idea what. Like whenever Krupp shows up, I'm just like, okay, like whatever the hell that meant. And even my third time reading this, I was like, oh my god, I forgot about this nonsense conversation that's just about to happen. Like that's why I just didn't. Kruppa is like fairly interesting, and I'm sure we'll become like a much bigger player soon. Maybe, well, not soon. We'll become a much bigger player later down the line. But yeah, it was all just complete nonsense to me, because I don't think I have like 5, 6, 7, 8 books to put it into context right now, you know?
So Krupp is a very interesting character, because he comes off as a simpleton, right? He has Crocus Younghand, I think, is like his thief apprentice. He is a master manipulator with hands and strings tied all throughout the events of Darujhistan, and has the ability to, if I'm remembering correctly, he has the ability of prophecy. So he says whenever Krupp, you shouldn't tune out whenever Krupp is on the page, because Krupp says really hard things to understand. You're like, what the hell? But like, he's actually predicting the future many times and trying to make certain outcomes happen. And so, yeah, he's always really confusing, but what he's saying is extremely important.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
and
good
he's
to know.
currently serving as an agent of Baruch, the alchemist who is head of the like Sorcerers Guild or whatever in Darujhistan.
Yeah, and like the rest of this chapter is just kind of like Lady Simtal and Turbanor and like Ralik and Murillo or whatever his name is, and Crocus, and I don't know. I don't really care that much about that stuff. I know I probably should. It's all kind of like leading to a point towards the end of this book that's really important. And so, yes, it is important to remember all this stuff. But like, I don't know, man. I feel like Gardens of the Moon, this book in particular, I feel like, and this is from somebody who's only read the first 2 books, but I feel like a lot of this book isn't really that important. You know what I mean? I'm probably so wrong. Like,
it's introducing characters, factions, and themes. And places. It's kind of giving us the lay of the land. You know, here's what Malazan Empire is all about. Here's what Lessine's all about. Here's the Whiskey Jack crew. Here's Krupp and his crew. And here is Baruch. Here's the city of Darujhistan. Here's some of the factions within it. Here's some of the ascendants. Here's some of the themes of ascendants using people as their pawns, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And maybe in the next episode, I'll be able to put a little bit more into context. I can't really remember like why all these people are important right now.
Me neither. Yeah.
We haven't done an episode where we've stopped like a part way through a book. So if you're listening right now and you're like, why doesn't Evan care about any of this stuff? It's like, I will, just give me a few more chapters. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
We just barely got introduced to these
people. Yeah.
people.
Like I just like right now, it's just like, oh, like Turbanord's like laying on a bed, and like Lady Simtal, and like, oh, this guy's wife is like hanging on Marilia's shoulder. Like, oh, the drama. And I don't really give a shit about any of that stuff right now. Like I will eventually. But yeah, the Darujhistan chapter, just coming hot off the heels of the Siege of Pale stuff, is just like, it's not that interesting to me, you know, like it's
totally.
But yeah, I mean, that's about all I wanted to go over for this episode, actually.
just to shine a little bit of light, and maybe I want to confirm my understanding. When Anomander Rake is talking to Baruch, he says that like he tasks Baruch with bringing him the heads of 2 escaped mages of Pale.
Yeah, totally.
So for some reason, Anomander Rake has some beef with the mages of Pale, and is like, I want them dead.
I didn't really understand that part.
Me neither.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
And then we hear when we can.
He had already killed some of the mages of Pale, didn't he?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and then when the more, we'll talk about it in a second. We hear mention of, and it's interesting, whenever his name gets brought up, there's always a character who's like, that name sounds really familiar, which is Kaladin Brood.
Yeah, I've never seen this man, but I already know he's super badass. I already know.
Super awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
He's the leader of the Tistiandi forces.
Oh, wait, no, he's part of this. He's in this book at some point, isn't he?
I don't know, actually.
I think we do see him eventually.
Do we? Okay.
You can quote me on that later. I'm pretty sure Kaladin Brood is in this book.
Okay.
I don't remember, man. I'm sorry, everybody.
Nah, okay. So what do you think, one of my final questions here, what do you think about the Malazan's Empire's alliance with the Moranth, these insect-like people? Because I think
it's cool.
I think it's cool too, but like, it doesn't seem to be a popular decision amongst her common army.
It doesn't seem to be like a super smart decision either, because it's like...
Why not?
Well, because they're like a really mysterious people. Like, they don't seem to like... They don't seem like... They seem loyal to an extent, but like, I just don't feel like...
As far as it'll serve their purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, they just don't give me like... They don't give me like this like ultimate like loyalty vibe at all, you know?
Totally.
But they're really cool.
For some reason, the mages of Pale had been like manipulating the Moranth, and the Moranth society has a big like revenge streak in it, and so when they get like allowed an hour of revenge or something when the city gets taken over, that Tattersail kind of like comments on, and for every life that the Moranth thinks that the mages of Pale took from them, they go in and in this hour of revenge take back killing in the city of Pale. And so the Moranth are really interesting, kind of hard to, I don't know, it's hard to empathize with like a group of insect people, you know? It's like hard to
I don't even know if they are insect people.
They don't have eyebrows. They are insect people for sure. They're like chitinous and they click and stuff.
I love it.
So yeah, and it seems like Lacine is only a ruler from fear. Like nobody is is with her because they love her. You know, she seems pretty scary. She's allying them with like dark, ancient races that are super scary. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they kind of represent the darker side of her rule, which is just her wanting power. And I love the fact that the Malazan Empire and the city of Malaz, like you said, is just like a little island, but it's taking over entire continents. You know, it'd be like Cuba taking over America or something.
Okay, that's gonna do it for me. I don't know. What do you think, Chad? Is there anything else you want to go over? Because I'm kind of like,
no, dude.
I want to go read more of this and put some more into context and everything. I think this was a great episode to get everybody introduced to this series. Yeah, I'm really excited, man. I'm so excited to become at least somewhat more of an expert on Malazan by the end of us reading this. Even though I feel like I'm gonna need to read it all again at some point in my life.
Yeah. I'm reminded, even just after these 2 books, of how truly like unique this series is. It's just like a cornerstone fantasy book in the fantasy book realm. You know, it's like the depth of story, environment, and characters just can't be compared.
And you know, everybody, we really, really do appreciate you coming on this one with us more than pretty much anything else we've read. Actually, I think that Chad and I wanted to do this from when we first started the podcast, and I'm just so happy that this is the way that we're doing it. We built up our audience this much that we've got such an engaged audience here for these episodes, and we've got so many. There's a ton of people that are involved in this and getting more all the time. And if you're listening to us in the future, hello. Thank you for listening to our cool evergreen content that we made years ago. And hopefully this is helping you. Maybe not this first episode so much.
You're right.
Like maybe
there's certainly a lot of question marks at the end of our conversations
for you. Yeah, you're probably just the same amount of confused, but you're with friends and we're confused.
You're in good hands.
You're in confused company.
If you have any sort of nuggets of information that will answer any of those question marks that we were stumbling along with, you know, feel free to slide into our DMs. We would love that for sure. Yeah, we are first and foremost 2 best friends reading a really cool series, so we do not pretend to be experts on what we're reading about by any means with any series, and especially not this one. So
yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go read more of this. I need
Me
to
too.
get some more context in so we can have an even better conversation in the next episode. So look out for the next episode, everybody. We're going to try to make this a weekly thing. We'll do our very
And
best.
what is the next episode going to cover? If you're reading along with us, so
that will
people know?
cover books 3 and 4, which would be The Mission and Assassins, respectively.
Excellent.
And then we're going to do 3 books for the last episode, and then get into Deadhouse Gates. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day. And of course, happy reading.
Bye, everybody.